All right. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Perspective Matters, This Week in Behavioral Healthcare. My name is Glenn Hadley. I'm the Director of Field Operations for Southworth Associates, and I'm your host today. Just for those of you guys that are new to the show, I wanted to give you a little background on what we do here. And our kind of the goal for the show, or what we do, is we address topics in behavioral healthcare ranging from clinical, operational, marketing, business development, and we even get into some public policy. And so our guests on here each week are going to represent different parts of behavioral healthcare and bring a different perspective to the audience. Our main goal for the show is to be a resource for the field and to bring mentors in this field to those on the front lines really doing the work. And so we're really excited to bring this to you. I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and do this real quick. So I want to take a minute and thank our sponsors, Southworth Associates and Dreamscape Marketing, for allowing us to do this. We are here because of them. And one thing that I do want to bring to you guys about Southworth and Dreamscape is that they have teamed up to put together a virtual events platform for all of your virtual trade shows, conferences, educational events, and even one-day webinars. We put together a platform to do that, to bring these to the public. We can do CEU, CME events as well. And so definitely reach out to us if you would like to put on one of those events for yourself or for your staff. So glad to have the support of Southworth Associates and Dreamscape Marketing. Please go visit their websites and check them out for any of your virtual events needs. So let's get to my guest today. So my guest is Ryan Miller. Ryan is a trauma-informed MSW and cut his teeth at an inpatient psychiatric unit for children, adults, and seniors. Ryan is also intervention trained through ARISE and is a recognized recovery coach and recovery coach trainer through CCAR. He is the board president for Treatment Professionals and Alumni Services, otherwise known as TPAS, and the director of Alumni Services for Futures Recovery Healthcare. Now, as the director of Alumni Services, Ryan is involved in developing Futures programming for current clients and client families as they transition to post-treatment life as alumni. He is responsible for the coining in process of current clients and the Days of Ascent program for alumni and families. He also trains Futures staff and greater recovery community in various programs offered through CCAR, including the Recovery Coach Academy and Ethical Considerations for Recovery Coaching. Whew, that's a lot of stuff, man. So cool. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you being on the show.
Absolutely. Great to be here, Glenn.
Cool, man. So let's go ahead and dig in. And I want to ask you, how did you get into this space of substance use treatment? How did you start this deal, and kind of who were some of the people that led you into this?
Great question. It was my junior year of undergrad. I was at the University of Florida, and I was really starting to kind of get into my major. And at that point, my major was political science, and I was heavily leaning towards law school. I knew I wanted to help people, and kind of honestly woke up one day, realized my heart wasn't in law, and really my heart was in helping people in the way that I was helped when I entered recovery in early 2006. And instantly with school pay, and really everything since then has been kind of history.
Hey, Brian, do me a quick favor. For a second, it cut out for a minute. Can you go back and say that again?
Yeah, from the beginning.
Yeah, just about the last thing I got was your journey into recovery, and that was about it.
Okay. Yeah, I was in my junior year of college, realized I didn't want to pursue law. My heart really wasn't in that, and I knew I wanted to help people in the way that I was helped when I entered recovery in 2006. And I kind of instantly knew that there was going to be more education down the road. I was going to go to school for something clinical, and was able to eventually wrap up my bachelor's degree with an internship at an IOP. And I knew I was on the right path, and really the rest there is history. And when it comes to mentors, it's really hard to only speak about a few. And one, unrelated to the field would be, my dad. Growing up, I was kind of taught that, we show up no matter what, and our word and commitment is everything. And I think those are huge aspects to recovery in general. And then, early on, it was the counselors that, believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. And then, specifically professionally, definitely somebody that I look up to a lot would be actually the CEO of Futures Recovery Healthcare. And that would be Michael Holloway. And I'll never forget, I've been with Futures since we opened, which was back in 2012. I was sitting in a room with the other new hires, kind of going through orientation, and Mike got up and talked about the why behind Futures being created. And the idea was creating an atmosphere of service that was really high level, that really put the patient first. And I remember him saying, when we walk through the doors of Futures, we really leave our problems on the outside, and we're really here to invest in and look out for the welfare of current clients. And, that just always has echoed with me, was something that I brought to Futures, and hearing that from our organization was amazing. And then, I'm here obviously talking about alumni services and TPAS today. And I've been involved in that organization since 2014. And really all the people that I've met there, from the founders of TPAS to the people that attend the events, they're some of the most caring and professional people in our industry space. They've become friends, but, most importantly, they've really helped develop programming at Futures that really has grown and shaped and changed lives for both our current clients, our alumni, and their families.
So let's talk about alumni programming just a little bit. For some of those in the audience that maybe are either in private practice or maybe new to the field, like what's the goal of alumni? Like what is why is alumni so important? And then how does TPAS kind of fit into that and support alumni programs?
Great question, right? So we're hearing more and more that, long-term recovery is tied to long-term support, right? And all the idea of, connection, purpose, and meaning. And so, it's great when somebody comes into a treatment center, whether they're there for 30 days or 60 days or 90 days, but we know really when somebody leaves treatment is really where the rubber hits the road, right? We're making that referral back to an IOP. We're making that referral to a therapist. We're making that referral potentially to a sober living. But, in days past, it was often like a pat on the back, and it was a call us if you need us, but do all of these things when you leave, right?
Right.
And that handoff can kind of be cold. And, really effective alumni programming engages somebody from the beginning of treatment, starts to create that relationship professionally with that person. So when life shows up, good, bad, or indifferent, they have a safe space to go back to. They have people that they can trust. And recovery morphs and changes. The needs at 30 days post-treatment is very different than the needs 1 year post-treatment. But when you have people that you can trust, that you can turn to, that will always connect you with the right people, recovery is just smoother. And specifically when it comes to TPAS, it's an organization that's been around since 2012. It's a national nonprofit. Our hallmark has always been our collaboratives. In our space, we typically call those events conferences, right? And for us, the typical conference where you get a speaker or a presenter, it's very passive. You're receiving a lot of great information, but the opportunity to really ask questions and engage is really limited. And hopefully you have to try to catch the presenter as they're walking off stage and a ton of people are walking up. And so we've opted to use something called open space technology, where we don't pre-design a conference agenda. We'll have some times and spaces for certain things, but we really want to leave the event as active as possible and have our attendees come in with questions, come in with topics that they want to learn about and teach about. And then we'll actually break out people into small conversations in small groups where, for a good hour or so, they can kind of go back and forth, ask questions, figure out what works, what doesn't work, exchange information. And it's a much more active process, which is, that's what we want to see with treatment in general, right? We want somebody to be actively participating in their treatment. And so, we want our professionals who are coming to our events to be actively participating in the process.
Yeah, I think it's extremely important for people that are getting into this field. I personally got into this field through an alumni program I had the opportunity to start one and grow one, and that was my first job in treatment. But whenever I was doing that, there was a lot of trial and error. There weren't a lot of resources for me to learn, like, okay, what works, what's effective. And it's one of the reasons why I'm excited about us being able to put a show on like this, where we get to introduce people to those resources, right? That there's a whole community of alumni professionals out there that are willing to work with newer people that are coming in, that are trying to build programs. There's a whole organization around that, that they don't have to go it alone. Because I can tell you, when you're dealing with people walking into early recovery, and you're trying to figure it out as they're trying to figure it out, it's a bit of a challenge, right?
Absolutely. And it's great to be able to connect, newer people into their position. But then at the same time, there's a lot of CEOs and people who make those financial decisions that are still kind of a little hesitant. Like, why should I invest in an alumni program? What is going to be the return? And an organization like TPAS, we can really connect a CEO with a CEO, and they can have that dollars and cents kind of conversation. And another thing that TPAS has been able to do is to really build off of our in-person collaboratives. And we put a ton of capital the last couple of years into a living, breathing resource document and library online, where regularly our members can go and get answers to those questions, right? They may miss a collaborative, but it's like, should I do this? Should I not do that? Should I waste time on this? What's the best way to go about supporting our alumni? And they can access these documents and then ask questions real time and get feedback from those in a member section as well. So it's great for back and forth.
So, moving forward a little bit, one of the things that really excite me right now is that in the industry of substance use treatment as a whole, there's this renewed focus on outcomes, right? Like, people are really excited about getting outcomes. The carriers are looking for some consistent outcomes. We're trying to find consistent measures. And up until about 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, it wasn't a really big deal, right? Like there wasn't a focus on it. And we know, like one of the studies that I quote a lot is this NIDA study that talks about the threshold for normal brain activity with somebody coming in is 90 days. Like, that's before you start seeing normal brain activity. And that's usually after most people have discharged from treatment, right? And so, like, alumni services are so important that we're out there after that person is discharged, during this time when we're starting to see the normal brain activity, and kind of walking with each individual as they get into early recovery. So I'm really excited about that. But have you seen have you seen that in alumni services? Are you seeing more focus being put on alumni services because of that renewed interest in outcomes?
Yeah, I definitely think that may be a part of it. Certainly, carriers and providers and insurance companies are wanting to see kind of, the efficacy of what we do, and kind of to see long-term what happens to people post-treatment. And, I know a lot of alumni programs, ours included, we do collect some outcome surveys that hopefully turn around and actually inform, clinical treatment, right? If we're seeing some trends, both positive and negative, they can turn around and actually inform clinical treatment. But, definitely, we want to see people stay clean and sober, but there's so many markers of success: employability, increased family relationships. We're not using the ER as primary care anymore. It's like, there's a lot of markers for success. And certainly alumni programming can help pave the path to not only receiving that information, but really kind of seeing the progression of somebody's journey, like you said, beyond the 30-day or 60-day or even 90-day treatment stay.
Right on. So what are some of the things that you've seen over, let's say the last 10 years in alumni programming, or even in that area, like some of the progressions, some of the things that maybe that are new that you're maybe excited about, or it's something that maybe is not as well known in alumni services, but we should know?
Certainly, I think there's now an increased, emphasis and attention given to alumni services. I mean, the fact that I'm on with you today talking about alumni services, not that we did these things, 10 years ago, but we weren't really talking about alumni services. I know there's some tremendous programs that have been out there for decades doing alumni programming, but now we've gotten really to the point where if you don't have a robust alumni program, people are starting to question why you don't have that. And that's really starting to become a decision-making part of, placing somebody into treatment. Obviously, clinical care and medical care, are paramount, but it's like, are you going to take care of my loved one or my referral or my patient post-treatment? And so, as organizations are starting to invest in alumni programming, I truly believe that the outcomes for our clients are just improving. Our families are reassured that, somebody's going to be following up with their loved one. And really, when a client finds out that, wow, like, you're going to support me, you're going to create events and opportunities and stay in touch with me post-treatment, it can really kind of take the edge off or the anxiety around eventually discharging from a program, knowing, it's just a phone call away or an event is coming up and I'm going to have this opportunity to come back to campus and engage and see therapists and see fellow alumni and give back to clients.
Right on. So on that note, let me ask you this. How do you approach your leadership team with certain alumni functions that you'd like to do or things like that, that you would like to get done? Because I know that that's often a pain point for alumni professionals is we tend to operate with one of the lower budgets, even though we're the lowest cost per acquisition, right, in the industry. How do you approach your leadership team about asking them for certain things or to try to get new programs instituted?
Well, TPAS has really taken a stance on creating some white papers around that, and we've presented at national conferences around that because that's a topic of interest to those that make the financial decisions. And so, we've approached that one of two ways. We created a white paper titled How to Make Dollars and Cents of a Dynamic Alumni Program. And so it was a play on word with sense, S-E-N-C-E. And so it's something that we've been able to send out to CEOs and the finance people who are making those decisions on where money goes for budget. And then two, at our national conferences, the title of what we present on is Alumni and the CEO, the business case for a comprehensive alumni program. And what we're able to do is really illustrate how an effective alumni program can help the organization shift from an acute care model to sustaining long-term recovery. We're able to explain which services create positive impact and enhance alumni engagement. And then when it comes down to the bottom line, we can really describe the means and scope by which an effective alumni program can positively impact census. And like you said, it's the highest return on investment, but sometimes you just need to be able to illustrate that. So really it's further professionalizing the Alumni Services Program. Not saying that it's not personal and that we don't care, right. But like anything else, whether it's clinical or medical, we need to track what we're doing and we need to be able to show its efficacy. And so quality alumni programs are really able to turn over a lot of really valuable information that when it's turned over in the right way, it's really not a hard conversation. It can just be sometimes tough for those that are just getting involved in this role or creating a program. And that's really where an organization and the connections through something like TPAS can really help you have that conversation with your CEO or your CFO or whoever's making that financial decision.
Yeah, because you guys have you have all these resources that are ready to go, right? That are ready for them to use to help to talk to their leadership team, and they'll show the return on investment for it. Also, one thing I like to joke around about, sort of, is that in substance use treatment or behavioral health care treatment in general, we don't have a TripAdvisor out there for treatment, right? Like, it's not like we can just go online and look at reviews and things like that. Like, we don't have that. What we have is our alumni testimonials. We have our alumni word of mouth that's out there that's talking about the different ways that we help them in treatment. And so that's kind of our angle and our goal. And if we don't have an active alumni program, how are we doing it? How are we getting that word out there? So in that same vein, talk to me a little bit about like some of the things that you guys do with your alumni there that have garnered like great results, that get testimonials and things like that? Because we do need to address the business side of this, that we are in business. We need to keep the doors open to help people. So what are some things that you guys do with your alumni, like event wise or community building wise, that have really showed up in your business?
Well, I believe it truly all starts at the organizational level, right? So it's alumni programming has to be treated as valuable. It needs the resources, it needs the space to help foster long-term recovery. You know, historically, alumni programming has been seen as an afterthought. You know, it's something that either begins after treatment, or if you're lucky, it's like the last week of treatment, you meet your person, right? You exchange information. And going back to the idea of recovery beginning with healthy connection, if alumni staff are only meeting a prospective client as they're exiting treatment, it's really, really hard to have that relationship take hold. Why are you going to take a phone call from somebody that you've never met, that you've never had a conversation with? And you could have events, but it's like, you know, I don't know anybody that's going to be at this event. I don't even know the person that's inviting me. So, you know, I make the argument that alumni programming and involvement should begin at admission, right? The staff should be meeting clients as early as possible. I think it's really important that regardless of credentialing for staff is figuring out a way for your staff to have formal contact with clients, informal contact with clients, and really be able to start building, you know, a relationship where they'll want to show up or they'll want to engage post-treatment. You know, one of the things that we've done, and it was something that, you know, I loosely learned about from a collaborative back in 2014, is we've moved away from the idea of graduating our clients to coining in our clients. And so early on in treatment out of detox, they have a group with me. They've received their coin. It's a very unique and special coin, and we already start to talk about what's going to be available to them post-treatment. And you know, that period right after detox can be really, really challenging, right? We're getting feelings and emotions back. We're starting to question whether we should be in treatment. Did we make the right decision? I'm not eating well. I'm not sleeping right. You know, my appetite is off. And if we can get that client through that middle part of treatment and say, hey, buy into the process, we're going to be able to support you post-treatment, they'll typically buy in a little bit more. The really cool things that we do at Futures, and it's, you know, I've spun it and made it to take full credit. We've now had 22 days of Ascent events where alumni have come back on property. Staying to Friday, they basically become clients for the day. And they have clinical groups with current clients and other alumni. We do Weektober Fun, and it's an amazing opportunity for our alumni to come back, recharge their batteries, be an example to current clients, and then they get to see staff as well. And so when we put these quarterly events on the calendar, you know, if we had one big homecoming, if you can't make that 2-day homecoming, wait until next year, right? For us, when we have larger events more often, you can pick and choose dates that work for you. And then, of course, you know, we have regional events, we have local events, we get involved with volunteer activities and being of service in the community. And so one thing may not work for one alumni and other events may. So if you provide a variety of options, you'll get more people to show up and engage.
Well, let me ask you this, and when it comes to doing those things in the time of COVID-19, what are just a couple of things that you guys have made the transition, and how have you adjusted to COVID-19 working with alumni and keeping them engaged?
Great question. And so, you know, specifically with TPAS, I mean, the board of TPAS, you know, completely volunteer led. We've been hard at work at really taking a look at all aspects of our organization, from membership to how we deliver our Hallmark Collaborative. You know, we're not unique. You know, conferences are beginning to move online, and rightfully so. And so, you know, we've begun navigating that process. We've done some trial runs, and really we're moving towards creating that same safe space to do the work we've always done. In person, we're just kind of moving it online. And I got our Leonard Bay, Dick Dillon, Carver Brown, Nikki Soda, Paul Hamblin, Kevin Zundel, Jamie Gibbons, Lisa Jane Vargas, and Michael Arnold. We all represent organizations and our own interests. And, COVID-19 has been a challenging time for all of us. And I really give a big shout out to those who are also extending their time and talent and effort into efforts, that are completely voluntary. And so, without their help, TPAS would not be where it currently is. And then specifically with Futures, going back to the beginning of April till early July, we've held 168 remote alumni meetings, and we're in the process of moving aspects of our Days of Ascent event to a virtual offering. And it's a changing time, but it's also a time where I think some of these changes are going to stick around long term, which is only going to help us as providers, and it's going to help the care and continued care of our clients and alumni.
Yeah, I think so. Around for a while, and one thing I want to stress to our audience, that one of the reasons why this is extremely important in this time right now is that our alumni that are moving through a residential treatment program and then getting discharged back into the recovery community or into the recovery community, they're not recovery meetings to go to. All of the recovery meetings that we would normally say, okay, you're going to go back to this community here, go to 90 meetings in 90 days or whatever your discharge plan says. Well, now those meetings aren't meeting live. You can't just go online and go find a meeting anymore because they're not meeting due to COVID. And so alumni services right now are so important because they are the only lifeline that's out there. I know that a number of people, it's hard enough for a new person just getting out of residential treatment to go to a meeting, right? And now we're even making it twice as hard because now not only do they need to go to a meeting, they've got to go online, go find whoever has the Zoom link, ask them for permission, get the password, like go through the gatekeeper and say, no, I'm really here for a meeting, that kind of thing. Yeah, that's not going to happen.
It's been really challenging. I know a lot of people, both personally and professionally, that have gravitated really well to online meetings, and they're totally okay sitting at home. And if that works, great. And I know a lot of people that have struggled with it from the get-go, and then others who have, early on, they were thinking it was going to be temporary, and they're really starting to get to the place where it's like, I miss my connection of being in person. I miss seeing that person at a meeting. And one of the challenges too, with various parts of the country starting to reopen, some meetings are starting to reopen, but it's all kind of word of mouth. So it's like you can look at a meeting list, but you might be showing up to an empty meeting. And for many, showing up to that very first meeting or meeting after having a tough day, you need people there. And when somebody's not at that meeting because it's closed down, it can be really, really tough. And so, Alumni Services has this amazing opportunity to stay in contact with alumni, and then also, create that community, virtually or telephonically or whatever it is, to provide that needed support.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that really needs to be shared, and alumni is the bridge, and it's a much needed bridge right now, more than ever, I think. So yeah, kudos to you guys for doing that and being that support. Last question I'm going to ask you, if for people that are new, that are getting into this field, whether it's the broader field of behavioral health care, or if it's into alumni services in particular, what advice would you give them? What tips would you give someone that's new coming into the field?
I think it's important to ask a lot of questions, and I think that can go to any aspect of behavioral health, whether you're seeking treatment, or wanting to place somebody in treatment. Ask a lot of questions, right? For anybody that wants to get involved with the field, it's, just ask questions. And so, depending on what you want to do in the field, very little or no prior experience is needed. Sometimes it can really help to know somebody within the organization that can advocate for you. Certainly for those looking to move up in the field or maybe not start at an entry-level position, certifications and trainings and education is needed. And so it's, again, really important to find people that have those trainings, that have those certifications, that have those degrees that you're interested in, and get their feedback, right? There's a variety of clinical degrees, and you can talk to social workers and mental health counselors and and all of that. And they will tell you the reasons why they pursued the degrees that they have, right? And so ask those questions, see what fits your needs and wants. And then I think it's really important, for those that are in recovery, identifying as being in recovery, wanting to get involved in the field, it's really important that we don't confuse our work for our recovery, right? I think it almost becomes doubly important that we're investing in ourselves if we're going to do this work. And then really, regardless of the why you're involved in this field, self-care is so important, right? We can only show up and give as much as we're able to get ourselves and refill our cup. And so self-care, self-care, self-care. So, yeah.
Right on. Well, look, man, I really appreciate you being on the show and talking to the audience out there, letting them know all the tips and tools that I just can't thank you enough for doing this. I'm going to put this up again so people know how to get in touch with you. And so, yeah, if you want to get in touch with Ryan and talk about TPAS or futures or just getting into this field, you can reach out to him. There's a number here. He's got his email is here. Reach out and say hello. And we're definitely just fortunate to have him on the show today. Ryan, is there anything that you wanted to add before we call it a show?
No, I just wanted to thank you, Glenn, in Southworth and Dreamscape for having us on and having TPAS on and just giving us the opportunity to talk about a really important part of addiction treatment. And, you've always been a big proponent and seller of alumni services. So I appreciate the work that you do for all of us.
Man, thank you. I think it's just a needed thing. And we do need to go out there and tell people about it because we are the bridge, man. We are the bridge. So thank you again. So I want to thank our sponsors, Southworth Associates and Dreamscape Marketing. Once again, I put the websites up here. If you are looking to host your virtual event, reach out to us. We would love to talk to you about that and continue these events during COVID, whether it's a trade show, an educational event, or even an alumni event. Give us a shout. We'd love to chat with you. I put my email address at the bottom. Please reach out to me. If you'd like to be a guest on the show or you have an idea for a topic or a guest, please shoot me an email. I'd love to hear from you. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and close the show. Next week's guest is going to be Louise Stanger. Really excited to have her on the show and looking forward to her talk. So with that, hope you guys have a great week and we'll see you all next Wednesday. Thank you.